There were about 200 of us packed into the Aqua Theater on the back of the Royal Caribbean's Utopia of the Seas. We were docked at their private island watching the World Cup finals on a screen I swear was the size of a house. Strangers, all of us. Nobody knew anyone. And every single time the ball got anywhere near the goal, the entire deck made the same sound at the exact same time. I'm sitting there, salt in the air, sun going down, a really nice breeze, my sister-in-law and my niece one row in front of me, and I had one of those moments where your brain steps out of your body for a second, and you think, how did I get here? And then, because I am who I am, my brain immediately followed that with, okay, but how much of this did I actually pay for? So let me answer that, because the answer may surprise you, and I think it may be more useful to you than almost anything I really could make up. The cruise itself cost us over $2,000, cash, every dollar of it. I did not use a single point on the cruise fare. But the flight down to Florida? Points. What about the hotel the night before? Points. And the flight home, you're probably asking? That's right, points. Plus a little maneuver that saved me even more. The 2 airport lounges we sat in on either end, eating food we didn't pay for, those were cards. And that $2,000, well, it's currently in the process of turning into our next trip. On purpose. Here's the thing. There's a version of this episode where I tell you how to get a free cruise with points. That episode would be a big fat lie. Some people may consider cruises the single worst thing you can spend points on in this entire game. And I'll show you why in just a few minutes. But there's a much better episode hiding underneath it. And it's this. The cruise is the thing that you pay for. Everything around the cruise is the thing that you don't. I got off the boat and I could not wait to tell you about it. So this is a bonus episode, a little bit shorter than usual and straight to the good stuff. So let's roll. Welcome back to the Point Circuit. I'm Lane, and this is the show that takes you from clueless to confident in the points and miles game. No crazy language, no gatekeeping, no assuming you already know what any of this stuff means. If this is your first episode, welcome. I built this show for the person who has a credit card, pays it off, and has no idea there's a whole world sitting on top of it. This one's a little bit different. Normally, I teach a concept and then show you examples. Today, I'm just going to walk you through a trip I took, my first cruise ever. 3 nights out of Port Canaveral on Royal Caribbean with my wife and her sister's family, decision by decision, teaching the concepts as they come up. And before we dive in, one quick thing I actually need from you. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, I want you to think about the one trip you don't believe you can afford. The bucket list one, the someday one. Hold on to it, because at the end, I'm going to ask you to do something with it. All right, here's what you're walking away with today. Why cruise credit cards look great and mostly aren't, the 4 things around a cruise that points cover beautifully, one specific move that I used on the flight home that most people have never heard of, and a reframe about those port days that I just did not see coming. Let's start with the thing you'd expect me to be the most excited about. And I'm not. Cruise credit cards. Here's what beginners may think. They think, I love Royal Caribbean and I love cruises, and I'm going to cruise again. So obviously the smart move is the Royal Caribbean credit card. I'm going to earn cruise points, get free cruises, same logic as an airline card, and it makes total sense. Here's why it's wrong. Let me explain something first, because we're about to use a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I promised I would never do that to you. There are basically 2 kinds of rewards points in the world. The first kind is what I call lock points. You earn them and they only work in one place. Think of airline miles that are locked to an airline. Hotel points are locked to a hotel chain. And that's right, cruise points are locked to that cruise line. The second kind is transferable points. Those come from banks like Chase, American Express, Capital One, Citi. And the magic is you decide where they go later. You can move them to a bunch of different airlines and hotels depending on what you actually need. That flexibility is the whole ballgame. Flexibility beats loyalty in this game, and it's not close. Okay, let's get back to the cruise cards. Before I say anything else, I have to flag something that changed recently, because if you go searching, you'll find a bunch of out-of-date articles. The old Royal Caribbean Visa signature card is gone. Royal Caribbean and the Bank of America have replaced it in 2026 with 2 new cards. You've got the Royal One and the Royal One Plus. If you had the old one, you're being converted over automatically. Those started going out, I think, in June. So if someone tells you they have the Royal Caribbean card, they might mean either one right now. But here's the gist. Royal One has no annual fee. 3 points per dollar on Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, and Silver Sea, plus some everyday bonus categories. Right now, the welcome bonus is 30,000 points after $1,500 of spending in 90 days. Priority boarding, a $100 anniversary reward, no foreign transaction fees, which actually matter on a cruise. And then Royal One Plus is the $99 version with a higher cruise earning. And I want to be fair. I'm not trying to dunk all over these cards. The no-fee version is a perfectly reasonable card. The priority boarding is real and helpful. No foreign transaction fees on a card you're using in Nassau is real. And if you cruise, 2, 3, 4 times a year and you want something simple that quietly builds onboard credit, this is not a scam, and I won't pretend that it is. But here's the part that most people won't tell you. Those 30,000 bonus points are worth about $300 toward a cruise. That's it. That's the ceiling. And that's the problem with every cruise point I've ever looked at. They're worth right around 1 cent each, and 1 cent each no matter what. There's really no upside. There's no move you can make to squeeze more out. 30,000 cruise points equals $300 off a cruise forever, the end. Compare that to transferable bank points when you know what you're doing. In the last few episodes, we've walked through how 60,000 of those can turn into a business class seat worth thousands of dollars. That's not 1 cent per point. That's 4, 5, and sometimes even more. So when someone asked me, should I get a cruise card to save on my cruise? What I hear is, should I trade a currency that can be worth 5 cents for one that's permanently worth 1? That's a beginner trap. Not because the card is bad, because the math is capped. And one more wrinkle, because it trips people up. On the Royal One cards, the points you earn are separate from the cruise line's actual loyalty program. Royal Caribbean's loyalty program is called Crown and Anchor Society. It's free, and it's how you earn status by actually sailing. Credit card points don't feed it. 2 different systems with the same logo. Which reminds me, I did not enroll in Crown and Anchor. I sailed 3 nights and left status on the table because I didn't sign up for a free program before I went. Rookie mistake, I know, and it's mine. It's free, takes 4 minutes, do it before your cruise, not after. So my actual recommendation, direct, because that's what you're here for, cruise once or twice a year, skip the cruise card. Use a transferable points card for everything. Pay cash for the cruise and spend your points on flights and hotels where they're worth 3, 4, or 5 times or more. Genuinely, if you are a cruise fanatic, multiple sailings a year, favorite deck, the whole thing, the no-fee Royal One as a second card is defensible. Not your main card, a side card earning onboard credit on cruise spending you're already doing. And beginners, you know what I'm about to say because I say it almost every episode and I'll say it until I lose my voice. None of this works unless you pay that balance in full every single month. Every card that I mention is only a good deal if you never carry a balance and never spend a dollar you weren't already going to spend. 1 month of interest wipes out a year of points. We chase points. We do not chase debt. That's the part where I told you not to do the obvious thing. Now let me tell you what I actually did. Here's the reframe I want stuck in your head forever. A cruise is just not one purchase. It's 5. There's the cruise fare, getting to the port the night before, getting home, and whatever you do in the ports. The cruise fare is the one that you pay cash for. The other 4 are where points live. Let me walk you through mine. We flew Atlanta to Orlando on Southwest on points. And there's a lesson here that has nothing to do with anything clever that I did. Those Southwest points, I earned them before I even knew any of this, before the podcast, before I understood what a transfer partner was. They were sitting in an account that I had earned from years before. Hear that, because a lot of you assume you're starting from 0. A lot of you aren't. Go log into every airline account you've ever made. Check the hotel program you signed up for at a front desk in 2019 because the clerk asked you to. Look at the card you already have and find out if you earned points you've never looked at before. I've talked to so many people who thought they had nothing and found 40,000 points in an account they forgot existed. That's a flight, a real, actual flight sitting there just waiting on you. Before you do anything else in this game, do an inventory. It's free, it takes you about 20 minutes, and it's easy. This is the one I'll argue hardest for, and it's the least exciting thing in this episode. We flew down the day before, and we stayed at a Hyatt place near the port. That's right, on points. 2 reasons, and only one is about money. The first is obvious. If you fly in the morning, your cruise leaves, and your flight gets delayed, weather, mechanical, whatever, the ship leaves. It leaves. It does not wait. There's no gate agent to argue with. There's no customer service desk in the ocean. The cruise line's position is basically, well, you should have flown in the day before. So flying in early isn't a luxury, it's insurance. And when you have points, that insurance is basically free. The second reason I didn't expect. My wife's sister and her family stayed at the same hotel the night before as well. So the next morning, we were all in one place. We took the shuttle to the port together, we checked in together, and we walked under that ship as one group. If you've traveled with extended family, you know getting 7 people to the same place at the same time is its own vacation ruining sport. We skipped it entirely. Nobody was texting a flight tracker screenshot at 6 in the morning. We ate breakfast, we got on a shuttle, and we were on the boat. The calm was worth more than the points. And that's the part of this game that people undersell. Points don't just save money. They buy you the version of the trip where nothing goes wrong. They let you say yes to the hotel night that removes the stress because it isn't coming out of your vacation budget. So whatever cruise you take, whatever port you leave from, get to that city the day before. Points for the hotel if you have them. If you don't have hotel points yet, fine, get there the day before anyway. Single most valuable piece of advice in this episode, and it has nothing to do with credit cards. Now let's talk about the flight home. This is where I get to use all the stuff we've been talking about for several episodes on the podcast. Flying back from Orlando to Atlanta, I did not book with Delta. I booked a Delta flight using Air France's program. If you heard the Transfer Partners episode, you know this move. If not, the 2-minute version. Airlines are grouped into big alliances, and we think of them as carpools. Everybody in the carpool shares seats with everybody else. Delta and Air France are in the same carpool called SkyTeam, which means Air France's frequent flyer program, it's called Flying Blue, can sell you a seat on a Delta plane. It's the same plane, same seat, same flight number. You just paid with a different program's miles. And why? Because the 2 programs charge different prices for the exact same seat and sometimes wildly different. And here's the layer that made me do it that week. Transfer bonuses. Normally, when you move points from banks to an airline, it's 1-to-1. Sometimes it's not, but usually it's 1-to-1. 1,000 becomes 1,000. But a few times a year, an airline runs a promotion. Move your points to us this month, and we'll add a bonus on top. 20, 25%, sometimes more. So 1,000 bank points becomes 1,200 airline miles, and the flight costs you fewer of your own points to book. Air France runs these more than almost anybody, and they had one running when I needed to book our flights home. Now, full transparency, because that's how we do it here. I went back to find the exact numbers for you, what I transferred, what it cost, what I saved, and I could not find them. There's a confirmation email in a folder somewhere hidden. I cannot find it, and I'm not going to make up a number just to sound impressive. But if I find it, I will tell you in a future episode. But the concept is the part that matters. I booked a Delta flight through a French Airlines program during a promotion that meant fewer of my points left my account for the same seat. And here's the rookie mistake I want to protect you from, because it's the most expensive one in this entire game. And you've heard it before. Do not transfer points to an airline because there's a bonus running. Transfer because you found a specific flight you want to book, and the bonus happens to make it cheaper. Transfers are one way, and they are permanent. Your points go to that airline, and they never, ever, ever come back. People see 25% and they get excited. They move 100,000 points over to have them ready, and then they don't find a word space on the route they wanted, and now they're stuck with 100,000 miles in a program that they're really not sure what to do. Find the flight first, confirm the seat exists, then transfer, then book every single time. All right, time for a word from our sponsor. Still nothing? Okay, so until corporate America discovers me, the sponsor is you. When you're ready for your next card, use my referral links in the show notes. The same cards, the same bonus, but I earn a few points for sending you. Everybody wins. Nobody reads terms and conditions. There's also Buy Me a Coffee, and the link is down there too if you want to fuel the podcast. And another option is you can subscribe and share this with a friend who wants nearly free travel. Back to the episode. Okay, let's talk about lounges. Smaller thing, but it sets up my next bit. On the way down in Atlanta, I spent some time in the Centurion Lounge. That's American Express's lounge. And you get in with the Platinum card. And on the way home in Orlando, we stopped at a different lounge that we got in because of a Chase Sapphire Reserve card. Different lounge, different bank, but you get in nonetheless. 2 lounges and 2 different cards all in one trip. And what that meant practically on both ends of a travel day with a group, a quiet place to sit, real food, actual drinks, a bathroom that was not a war zone. On the way home, especially post-cruise, I'm tired, my wife's tired, we're a little sunburned. But that was the difference between a rough travel day and a really soft landing. And I'll be honest about the trade-off. These are expensive cards with real annual fees, and lounge access alone probably doesn't justify them for most people. But if you're already carrying one for other reasons, use the lounge. There's a shocking number of people who hold these cards for years and never once walk into a lounge they're already paying for. Which brings me to the guy sitting 3 seats over from me in the Orlando lounge. And I haven't done this segment in a while, but it's what's in other people's wallets. So we're in the club lounge in Orlando. The cruise is over. Everybody's got a little bit of a sunburn, a little bit tired, and I'm just over there minding my own business. Behind me, a couple is talking, not too quietly, and the guy is talking about his credit card of all things. Understand the restraint this required for me. I host a podcast about this. My superpower is being deployed 6 feet away by a stranger who does not know that I even exist. I did not turn around. I did not introduce myself. I did not say, well, actually, let me tell you. And I want that on record because my wife will tell you I was vibrating. But here's what I overheard. He had the Chase Sapphire preferred card, and he had just upgraded to the Sapphire Reserve. The reason that he gave, paraphrasing, was the lounge. He wanted lounge access. Then he started going through the other benefits he was planning to use. He mentioned hotel credits, clearly working through the card's newer benefit structure, figuring out what he could take advantage of. Sounded brand new to the card. He was excited, a little like he was convincing himself he had made the right call. Let me tell you what I was thinking since I didn't get to tell him. First, the good part. He was doing things most people don't. He wasn't just holding the card. He was sitting there with his partner going through the benefits one at a time, figuring out how to actually use them. That's the whole game with premium cards. These things are a gym membership. The value is real, but only if you show up. A card with a high fee and a stack of credits you forgot to use is just expensive metal. He was doing the homework, so good for him. Now, here's the part that I'd have gently pushed on. Lounge access is a benefit, and it is a nice one. But it is not by itself a reason to move to a card with a much higher annual fee. Because that lounge we were both sitting in, it is a perk of the card. It is not the point of the card. The point of the Sapphire Reserve, the engine underneath it, is that it earns Chase Ultimate Rewards points, and those transfer to a whole list of airline and hotel partners. And that's the thing that turns a card into free flights. That's the thing that took me from clueless to confident. The lounge is a nice room you sit in for 90 minutes. The transfer partners are the trip. I'd bet money that he had no idea the second thing existed. He upgraded for the room. He's sitting on the engine. And that's not a knock. That was me 2 years ago. That's most people. That's not you. The banks advertise the lounge because the lounge photographs really well. Nobody runs a commercial about transfer partner award charts. So here's your takeaway from that couple. If you're carrying any card with an annual fee right now, go pull up its benefits page tonight and read the whole thing. Not the marketing page, the actual benefits. Find out what you're already paying for. Then find out whether it earns transferable points and where they can go. Most people are sitting on more than they know. That guy was, and I was. So let's talk about that cruise fare, because I said that I would come back to it. Over $2,000 cash, paid on a card and paid off. I thought about not telling you a number, and I decided to say it plainly because dodging it sends the wrong message. It's not a flex. It's the opposite. It's me saying I run a podcast about traveling on points. I've spent a couple of years learning this, and I still wrote a check for the cruise because the cruise is the part that you pay cash for. Now, I want to be precise about the money because the precise version is the useful version. We didn't sit down and budget for this specific trip. This came together kind of last minute, family going, us tagging along. What we had was money already set aside, the money you keep around for when that invite comes. It wasn't earmarked for a cruise, but we did have it ready, and that's exactly what made the next part work. Here's the concept, and it's the most useful thing in the back half of this episode. Most new credit cards come with a welcome bonus, a big pile of points, after you spend a certain amount in the first few months. That's the fastest way to build points in this entire game. Nothing else is close. You are not going to earn your way with business class tickets buying groceries. Or at least not very quickly. And here's where beginners get hurt. They see a bonus that needs $4,000 of spending in 90 days, and then they go find $4,000 worth of spending. They buy stuff. They put it on the card. Then they can't pay it off. The interest eats the bonus alive, and they're worse off than if they'd never heard any of this. The smarter move is the exact opposite. You don't find spending to match the bonus. You point the bonus at spending that's already happening or money you already have. That's what this was. I had over $2,000 of real spending walking out the door for a cruise covered by money that already existed. So I opened a new card and I ran that spending through it to trigger a welcome bonus. Same dollars I was going to spend anyway. Now they're just doing two jobs, paying for the trip and funding the next one. And I'll keep the card itself brief because honestly, it deserves its own episode and it's a little different from maybe your situation. It was an airline card opened for a very specific reason. And I know you're yelling at me saying, but airline cards are locked. I hear you. So that's why it's for my situation specifically. I have a Hawaii trip that I've already picked, and this card's points are the best path there for me. That's the only reason I locked points made sense here. I'd already locked in the destination. If I didn't have the exact plan, it had been the wrong card for me. So please don't run out and copy the card. Copy the timing, because that's the lesson here. You've got a big expense coming up, a cruise, a wedding, a new water heater, a semester of tuition. It's happening anyway, and you've got the money for it. That is the moment to open a card with a welcome bonus you can hit without changing a single thing about how you spend. The cruise fare didn't cost me points. It bought me points, and those points are turning into my next trip. Okay, let me tell you about the 2 days in between the flights, because this is where the trip got, kind of funny. Day one was Nassau, and I have a confession. I did not get off the ship. That's right, I did not get off the ship. Now, I need you to understand, this was not an accident. This was a declaration. If you've seen Seinfeld, you know The Summer of George, where George gets a windfall of free time and he announces he's going to read a book, play frisbee golf, become a whole new man, and then basically he accomplishes nothing and he hurts himself. Well, welcome to the day of Lane. Everyone else could go do their little excursions. I was going to experience the ship. All of it. Every deck, every corner, every hidden nook they don't put in the brochure. I had a vision. I was going to come back with opinions, and I did. I walked that boat like I was conducting a safety inspection. I have thoughts about deck layouts now. I know where the quiet elevator is. I found a coffee spot most people walk right past. In my mind, this was going great. This was a triumph. The day of Lane was peaking. Meanwhile, my wife's sister's family got off in Nassau and they did a dolphin encounter. They got in the water, up close with the dolphin. The dolphin danced. There was apparently kissing involved. The dolphin's name was Gumbe. So they came back that evening, faces glowing, telling me about Gumbe the dolphin, and I'm standing there, a grown man, about to tell them the highlight of my day was discovering a really well-placed stairwell. That's the day of Lane. That's exactly how the Summer of George goes. You have the grandest possible plan, and you end up alone on a boat, proud of the hallway. 10 out of 10. Would do it again. But learn from me, maybe get off the boat next time. Let's talk about day two, though. Day two was Coco Cay, Royal Caribbean's private island, and the day was perfect. Some folks went snorkeling and they came back talking about fish and stingrays. We hung at the pool, which was lively in the best way, and then we just wandered the island. There's a walk towards South Beach where we found a spot people call the Secret Bar, and on the way there, we saw hermit crabs and iguanas. Just iguanas out there living their lives unbothered. The lagoons were unreal. The specific shade of blue that doesn't photograph right. We got over there around 10 in the morning, spent the day, and we came back to the ship, still docked, for the World Cup final in the Aqua Theater, which is where this episode started. We didn't actually pull away from Coco Cay until later that evening, while we were sitting on the main dining room having dinner. You feel the ship start to move mid-conversation. That's a strange and yet wonderful thing. So here's the thing that I keep going over. Between Nassau and Coco Cay, we spent maybe 14 hours total in those places. That's not a trip, that's a preview. And I think that's really what a cruise is. And most people may not think about it that way. A cruise is a sampler platter. You know how you order the appetizer sampler, and the point isn't that any one thing is a full meal. It's that you know what you want to order the next time. It's like the tour of Italy at the Olive Garden. That's how these port days are. You're not experiencing all of Nassau. You're tasting Nassau, getting off a boat, walking around for 6 or 7 hours, finding out whether it's a place you'd come back to for a week. And here's why that matters for us specifically. You already have the skills to come back. Everything we've covered for many episodes, flights on points, hotels on points, transfer partners and alliances, that's the machinery for going back to the place the cruise showed you. The cruise is the trailer. Points are how you see the movie. So on your next cruise, treat every port as reconnaissance. Get off the ship. I'm looking at myself here. Walk around. Ask one question. Would I want to come back here? And if the answer is yes, when you get home, go look up what it cost in points to fly there and stay there. Not to book it, but just to look. Just to find out that the place you fell in love with for 6 hours is only a 20,000 point flight away. That's a completely different feeling than, well, that was a nice place, to that's, I know how to get back. And that ties that into a story that isn't mine. And I want to tell you about my parents' honeymoon that they took to Hawaii. They were young, probably didn't have a lot of money like a lot of young married people. And that trip became a permanent thing in our family. It came up constantly growing up. There were pictures, there were stories. It was a reference point. Then years later, a milestone anniversary, decades of marriage, they went back to celebrate their 40th anniversary. The same place they had started, and then they took a cruise. And I'm not sure which ship, and I don't really know the itinerary, but that's not the part that anybody really remembers. What I remember is what it did for them. That trip was enormous and emotional, not because of the boat, because of the loop, a place they had been at the very beginning, when they had nothing. And then they got to come back on the other side of a whole life together. And I think about that a lot now because there's a version of this game that's all about optimization, cents per points, award charts, alliances, getting the number down. And I like that version. I mean, obviously, I made a whole podcast about it, but the number was never the points. It's not about the cruise line that my parents took. They remembered going back. And I don't remember what those Southwest points or Air France points cost me, but I do remember standing on a deck with 200 strangers yelling at a soccer game. Nobody in my family is going to remember how much that dolphin encounter cost, but they are going to remember Gum Day. That's what this is for. Points are not the trip. Points are the thing that make the trip possible when the money says no. That's the whole job they do. And that's why I get intense about pay your balance stuff and why I don't tell you that you can get a free cruise with points when you can. Because the second this game starts costing you more money instead of saving it, it stops making memories and it starts making debt. And debt, well, that doesn't take you to Hawaii. All right, let's begin to wrap up. Quick version in case this is all that you remember from today's episode. 1, cruise points are worth about a penny each and there's no move to change that. If you cruise once or twice a year, skip the cruise card and carry a transferable points card instead. 2, a cruise is 5 purchases, not just the one. Pay cash for the fare, points cover the flights, the night before, the flight home, and getting back to the ports later. 3, fly in the day before, always. If the ship leaves, it leaves. Points make that insurance nearly free. 4, point new card welcome bonuses at money you already have going out the door. Never invent spending to chase a bonus. 5, treat every port on a cruise as a sampler play. And you already have the skills to go back should you want. Now let me take you back to the deck. 200 strangers, a screen the size of the house, that sound everybody made at the same time. The version of me from 2 years ago is not on that deck. That guy looks at a cruise, adds up the fare and the flights and the hotel and the parking and decides it's too much this year and he says maybe next year. And then next year something else comes up. That's not a hypothetical, that's the pattern. That was most of my 30s. And most of my 40s. What changed wasn't my income. It was learning which parts of a trip I actually have to pay for and which parts I don't. That's the entire skill. The cruise fare I paid on purpose with money we already had, and I'd do it again. But the flight down and the hotel that made the morning calm, the flight home through a French Airlines program, that came off the top. And the money that would have gone to those things stayed in our account, which is a big part of why the trip happened at all. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need spreadsheets. You need to know the trip has parts, and some of those parts have a points version. And that's what you've got now that you didn't have a little while ago. And my friends, one more time, because it's the foundation, Never carry debt. Remember, we chase points. We do not chase debt. All right, folks, that is our episode for today. Now, remember at the top, I asked you to think about the one trip you don't believe that you can afford. Here's what I want you to do with it. I want you to drop it in the comments. Wherever you're listening or watching, tell me the trip. The bucket list one, the someday one, the one that feels out of reach, because there's a real chance it becomes an episode where I actually break down how you get there on points. Listen, I read these. That's not a line. Tell me where you want to go. And if this show has helped you at all, the biggest favor you can do for me, it takes about 30 seconds, leave a 5-star rating and an actual comment. This is not for my ego, because ratings and comments are literally how the next overwhelmed beginner finds the show instead of the one that assumes they already know everything. You leaving a comment is you holding the door open for the next beginner. That's the whole thing. Show notes are in the app. Everything lives at pointsrookie.com. Come find me on social media, Instagram and TikTok at pointsrookie, and we'll have another episode coming out soon. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Lane. This is the Points Rookie, and this is how we go from clueless to confident together. We'll see you later. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.